I'm Matt.
Hey, I'm Steve.
Hey, I'm John.
This is the Sober Friends Podcast. We're here for the sober curious, the new guy, and the old timer. We're here to talk about the stuff anyone looking to live alcohol-free has to face day to day, and how we overcame those struggles. We speak for no 12-step group, but we do try to remain anonymous. You're not alone. This is the Sober Friends Podcast. All of our affairs, even outside of an AA meeting, we've got to do these principles all the time. I don't know if I signed up for that. Hey, John and Steve, what's going on?
Hey, Matt.
How you doing tonight?
I am doing good.
Yeah.
Thinking about an amends I had to make to my wife tonight because I was grumpy. So she goes to the store and she buys stuff that, well, she went with my daughter, the two impulse people, and they were hungry and they came home with all types of strange things, including a little tray of meatballs. And sometimes I start to think that she brings home this food because she knows I can cook this stuff. I'll just buy whatever looks good. Matt will figure it out. He's a good cook. And sometimes that really irritates me that I feel taken for granted because I have talent. Not thinking I have to think this stuff through if I'm going to have a culinary delight. You can't just give me that and then give me incomplete ingredients. That was a little nasty. And I had to make an amends. I made two amends. I made it the first time. I don't know if I felt it. Second time I felt bad. I said, look, I am being grumpy. I'm a little overwhelmed. I'm a little stressed. I'm sorry. Shouldn't have done that. And that's part of it being in all of our affairs.
Practice these principles in all our affairs. I've heard that before.
Oh, yeah.
What's that? Step, 27?
Yeah, 35.
I don't think it's
35,
step 13. Yeah. That's another.
Or is that Rule 61 from Leroy Jethro Gibbs? No, that's never saying, yeah, it is. Never saying I'm sorry or apologizing for anything.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's step 12. Step 12, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we carry the message to the alcoholic that still suffers and practice these principles in all our affairs.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah.
So the question is, what are the principles, right? I mean, for those who don't know this program, what are the principles that we're talking about?
Step 1 through 12.
Well, also in all of our affairs, I thought this was about stopping drinking.
Yeah, I thought it was too.
Yeah, it is. It's about living a nice, sober, healthy life. And how do we do that? We admit it. We are powerless over our drug of choice: alcohol, food, sex, gambling, whatever it may be. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves can restore us to sanity, that there's something out there better than us that we can rely on to keep us, to try how to help get us sober. And then we make a decision to turn our will over. And then we start the real work, the step 4 inventory, where we go through our fears, our resentments, our harms done to others, and our sexual misconduct. And we tell somebody about it. We get this stuff off our chest. We go to God and we ask for forgiveness and strength, and we go out and we start making the amends, and we clean our side of the street, and we become whole, decent people again. And then we watch these things. We continue to take the personal inventory, and when we are wrong, promptly admit it. What Matt was alluding to at the beginning of the show, and then continue prayer and meditation. And then once we get all this stuff down, it's up to us to go carry the message to the alcoholic that still suffers. But it doesn't, just because we went through the 12 steps, doesn't mean that we're over and done with. We got to practice these things. What we learned by going through the steps, that's our daily living. When we're wrong, promptly admit it. If we practice step 10, a lot of our problems are going to go away because we learn the things that we do to others that piss them off. We hurt them. We get resentments. We take care of this stuff right away. And if we do, it's over and done with. We don't sit there and fester it. We don't sit there and nurture it, or like Joe and Charlie, the resentment replay machine, over and over and over again in our heads, just making us batty.
I'll tell you one of the reasons I thought about this topic is I'm on a Slack group with another bunch of drunks, and my buddy Tony from the Connecticut Shore was sending a message about how somebody told him he needs to work on his sarcasm sickness. And he didn't realize he had a sarcasm sickness. And the way he wrote this, even without having any type of thought of being sarcastic, it was sarcastic.
Yeah.
And somebody pointed back, it's kind of a sarcastic response, Tony. And he's like, oh, I guess it is.
Exactly what we're talking about, Tony.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, sarcastic or sarcasm, the root of the word is tearing of flesh. I remember I was up at a retreat up at Gove Hill, and one of the guys, he's an old timer. I can't. Jimmy A. Because we're sarcastic at home. We bust people's balls all the time. And Jim pointed out, he goes, sarcasm, he goes, the root of the word, what it means is tearing of flesh. And I looked it up in the dictionary, and lo and behold, that's what it means. And it brought on a whole new perspective that, when I'm sarcastic to somebody, I can be very mean to them.
Me too.
And I was really sarcastic to I always took the attitude, I can dish it out and I can take it too. So if you can't take it, then don't dish it out. And I had a boss, a director, that he could dish it out, but he couldn't take it. And I went after him, and it pissed him off, and I had to make an amends. It's like, I had to say, I'm sorry, because then I realized what I was doing. Doesn't mean I'm not sarcastic anymore. Probably not as bad, but it can be, you can hurt people being sarcastic.
Yeah, but Matt had it for me, right? I mean, I came to this program because I had an alcohol problem. Really, that's what I came here for. Like, I think a lot of us, I mean, when you come in here to stop drinking. Yeah, I came here to get my drinking under control. And this is why when you suggested this topic, Matt, it really hit me, because I've shared it before. It's like when I came to this room, into these rooms and into this program, I had a very different vision of the pace of my recovery than my wife did. Right? I thought I was way farther ahead than I really was. I mean, I was really proud of myself. She didn't think so. I mean, she had a different view of it. And so I have to remember that this is what it means to me, that I could go to the AA room and I can have patience and tolerance and love for the sick and suffering alcoholic. And I could show all of those things. And when my phone rings, I could give that person the time. I could step up away from the dinner table, and I could go and sit and talk for 15 minutes. I can do all of those things with love and compassion and tolerance and all that, and then still be a complete jerk at home.
It's very easy to be a jerk at home because it's in my comfort zone.
Yeah.
I don't have to be on my best behavior.
Right. It's safe and comfortable. This is your happy place, so you can do whatever you want. But that's where we got to practice these principles. Mostly is to the people that we love and we care about, our wife, our kids,
right,
our spouse.
Right.
That's they're the people that suffered the most from our disease.
Absolutely.
And they're the ones that deserve the love and kindness and attention and compassion that we have for the other alcoholic. They deserve it more because they lived through it. They lived through our insanity, our hell. They were the recipients of a lot of our anger.
Yeah. Yeah, and even though, right, even though my wife, right, came into the picture long after I had gone through most of my worst alcoholic phase, although I did relapse while I was married to her, but she still lived with the alcoholic problems that I have, the problematic alcoholic that I was, because I hadn't done enough of the work, because I hadn't grasped the concept of what we want to talk about tonight, about doing all of these things, about practicing all of these principles in all of my affairs. And it takes a lot of practice and a lot of attention for me, for this alcoholic, to make sure that I'm doing that. I had a thing this morning. My wife and I were eating. I've tried to stop watching TV a lot more than I used to. And I started reading a lot. And my wife loves having the TV on as background noise. But I can't have, my wife can read a book and have the TV on. I can't do that.
I can't either.
I can't do it either.
And so I'm in the den and I'm reading my book, and she comes in and she starts reading She reads on a Kindle, and we sat there for about an hour. And I told her today after dinner, like, I really love that time we spend together. We're not talking, we're not doing anything. We're in the same room. And like, that is something I couldn't have done before. I didn't want to do it before. I didn't want to sit in the same room. Like, I like the fact that that's what we've been able to do. And that's because I've been able to put together these principles in all of my affairs, doing them at home, realizing that when I'm home, I do need to pay attention to being home, right? And today I do. I still take that phone call if I think I need to take that phone call. If I think that phone call is an alcoholic who may be in trouble, then I'm going to take it, regardless if it blows up my dinner or not. But if it's somebody who just wants to call and chat, I'm going to probably pick it up. Hey, if I have my phone, I'll give you a call back when I'm done.
Right.
So yeah, I think it's a great topic of trying to figure all of this out.
And this is a group of sensitive people. People who are in recovery in general, I find to be generally pretty sensitive people, and you can do some damage with sensitive people. And sometimes the sensitive people say the wrong things as a defense mechanism.
Yeah. Thin skin.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Thin skin.
Sensitive.
Right. That's a nice way to put it.
Yeah.
Right. Sensitive. No, I absolutely, right. We're defensive or sensitive, all those things, especially early on. Early recovery, my emotions were a mess, right? I didn't know how to deal with all those emotions. I didn't know how to, right? I was always in attack mode. I really was. If you came after me, if you made me feel bad, I attacked. That's where I was. Right. I attacked. I was defending myself. And I had to learn that, listen, my wife has bad days too, right? And that's what I had to learn. Like, she's got bad days too.
Just because we put the plug in the jug doesn't mean that we're driven pure as the snow. We when we first come in and we start learning these, we get these tools to put in our toolbox and learning these skills, these life skills, because they're not just not drinking skills, they're life skills. As we learn them, they're hard to do at first, but they get easier and easier and easier. Then over time they become habit. This is the way you are.
Right.
But if you kick back on your meetings, or you don't get enough sleep, or enough of the right foods, or like Lindsay's talked about back in a couple episodes, plenty of sleep, plenty of water, and deal with your stress. I find for me that when I get into that area, when I'm a little bit tired, I've gone a couple of days and I'm, down on my sleep, and I'm tired and I don't want to be bothered. I can be short-tongued, and even after all these years, I can still be an ass to my wife. Because like Matt said, it's safe. I can say those things, but I shouldn't. Just because I feel safe in my home doesn't give me the right to hurt somebody in the process. And I've made it a lot of amends after being tired and saying something I shouldn't have, or being critical of her, or, whatever the case may be, and then I got to go down and I got to go, I'm sorry. I was a jerk again.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. I'm tired. It's not an excuse. I'll try better next time.
I'm realizing I'm exhausted today. I did not get a good night's sleep.
Mm-hmm.
I had a 2 p.m. coffee, and as tired as I was, I laid down. My eyes were open wide. I'm like, oh crap.
Right. Yeah.
I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
So today I'm definitely, there's a little bit of being overwhelmed. There's a little bit of not getting a good night's sleep. I really need to focus on getting to bed tonight.
Yep.
At a reasonable time. I'm also thinking of other things in all our affairs, and there is the God term. So bear with me a moment if you have a problem with God. Think about it this way, that there's a higher power, you're not it. And that means you've got to put your will over to whatever that higher power is to you in all your affairs, not just in your drinking. So to me, that means put your will over to God, or your higher power, or master of the universe, or however you want to look at it, as long as you know you're not there. and you take your will away from how you deal with your family, how you deal with your job, going to the supermarket. It's not just alcohol. It's everything, your friends, and that you start thinking about that. Like, wait, I don't know if I signed up for that, that I'm giving my will away on my job, on my family, on if I should buy a new car or not. And yeah, if you're going to do this successfully, it's more than just giving your will away on those other things, because life is connected. The other things in life got you to a place of drinking.
Yeah, here's the thing about giving my will away. First of all, I can never understand that concept. It's like, how do I give my will away? I have to have some will to survive in this life. But what it meant to me was that I had to stop focusing on me, right? On me. And a perfect example today, I had to go out and do some errands today, and I had to go shopping. And those of you who are living and you do this kind of stuff, you walk into a grocery store nowadays, and there's little on the shelves. There really is. It's like, on my list, there are 4 things that don't exist in the store right now. And I just walk
Pasta
in.
sauce is one of them.
Right. Well, a lot of them. My wife wanted some Swiss mix cocoa that she likes in the K-cup form, right? And I've looked for them, and I went there today and they didn't have any.
Amazon.
Right. I get it. And some of the stuff I probably should do it. I don't think about that.
Right.
Because I still go to the grocery store. You're right. On something like that. But I go there, and today I'm good with that. Like, I go there and I come home and I got her the other stuff. I'm like, that's what they got. That's all I can do. And I had to run to the post office, and I go in there, and there is one person in front of me at the post office. Problem is, this one person has 6 different letters that he needs signatures on, and there's only one clerk because it's just around lunchtime. And so, and I look, and like, those were the type of things that would have driven me nuts.
Me too.
Nuts. I mean, I didn't even have to pay for this. This is a return that was postage mark paid. All I needed was a receipt. Here, give me a receipt. I wasn't at that window for 20 seconds, and I walked out the door. But I had to wait for the 15 minutes behind this guy. That would have driven me nuts. And today I could stand there totally comfortable, totally at peace, practicing my patience and tolerance. Like, hey, this guy's got business to do here.
Do you have the forever stamps with the flowers? I need to do, what's that called where you do the mail and you get the receipt back? How much is that?
Right.
This guy, you have a cheaper option.
Here, I'll tell you, just on the same thing, just to digress, but this guy was talking about whether the street or the town was spelled with 2 N's or 1 N, and was worried that one of the things wouldn't get there. And I felt like screaming, "It gets there by the zip code, jerk!"
Do you need the 9-digit one or the 5-digit zip code?
And even the woman at the gate she was like, "Oh, if it makes you feel better," I'm like, "Listen, mister, it's going to get there.
Right.
As long as you got the right zip code, it's going to get there." Anyway, so
that would have made me insane in the past.
Right, me too.
But I really practice tolerance. And if I see someone like that, what's flipped my mind is it's a person in need. There are times that I'm not so sure about what I want at the counter, and I don't want somebody over my shoulder being upset.
Yeah.
That maybe this is somebody who it's really important. They want to get it right, or they don't know.
Who knows?
See, I learned a long time ago there was an acronym for that. It's called AFGO. Another fucking growth opportunity.
Yes.
Yeah. You got to be careful, because if you pray for patience and tolerance, the big guy up, the czar of the universe. I love that one when Bill put on it, czar of the universe. He's going to give you some lessons in patience and tolerance.
Right.
He's going to put an unreasonable person in front of you that just wants to argue, and you have to sit there and take it. Or you get behind that person in the line over at the post office that they have all the time in the world, and you just want to get out and get in and get out.
Right.
There's your opportunity. That's a learning experience right there. That's a growth moment. So take it, embrace it, learn from it. And what can you do better the next time? Because it will happen again.
Well, the biggest problem with that is my expectation in that situation that this post office should be ready for me to come in and do my business on my time schedule.
Don't they know who you are?
Right. So I'm supposed to walk in there and they're supposed to say, "Oh, Mr. Steve, thanks for coming in. Excuse me, folks, let him come up first." No, the world doesn't work that way. So I have to go in there and whatever is in front of me. And listen, while I was there waiting, like I said, I was second person in line. By the time I got out of there were 6 people behind me.
Mm.
And that thing that whole wait got long, right? So, and I've always said that too. It's a matter of how quickly you walk in that door. Like I could have walked in that door with 6 people deep instead of 1 person deep. Anyway, so it's just, and I was going to say that too, John, is that a guy, Eric M., who I used to love to see at my Friday night meeting, said that, and that was the first time I ever heard it. And he said exactly what you said. He goes, when I pray to God for patience, He doesn't give me patience. He puts somebody in front of me that I could practice my patience with.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never forgotten him saying that to me.
Yep.
So when that happens to me, I just think, oh, I'm getting a chance to practice my patience today. It's really a beautiful thing. And that's what this program does for me. And it's what it can do for you if you buy into this program.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that the Creator puts things in my path for lessons.
Yeah.
There are life lessons all the time. And if I get the lesson, I probably won't have to repeat it again. But if I don't get the lesson, I'm going to continue to get the lesson
Right.
over and over and over until I go, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
Duh.
The light goes off.
Yeah, and then I won't have to do that lesson for a long time. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I'll pop right in. It's like, oh, okay, do you remember how to do this? Let's see how well you do it after a long period of time. Are you still patient? Are you still tolerant? Did you do it? Did you get pissed off this time when somebody rubbed you the wrong way, or you're at work and one of your direct reports comes up to you and says something that just lights your ass on fire, and you don't reach across the desk and wring his neck. You just sit there and you take a big deep breath and you talk to him in a nice, calm, monotone voice without getting any anger in there, and then they don't know how to react to that. But you got to go through the lesson in order to learn the skill. And the minute you forget, guess what? The lesson's coming back.
Yeah, it's coming back for sure.
I wish I could remember exactly what this guy said. There is this guy that I know called Boston Be a Man. He has like millions of followers. And this guy I kind of loosely know who is this guy. And I wish I could remember one of his videos. And his videos are like this of like, when you're doing a project, instead of getting a plan, wander around Home Depot until you get lost. Be a man. So his thing was something like, when you have the slightest inconvenience, overreact and flip out. Be a man. And he's so disheveled. But I saw that one thing about, flip out at the littlest inconvenience. And I'm like,
Right.
that if I'm not drinking, but I'm not sober, I mean, that's the definition of a dry drunk.
Yeah.
If I'm flipping out and being a baby, something's wrong.
Mm.
Hey, I've said it before. I don't know if I've said it on the podcast, but my wife and I had a running joke. And it wasn't quite a joke, but it was almost, we laughed about it for the most part. I think she was uncomfortable about it, but she used to tell people that I had an incident in JCPenney. And I think I have mentioned it, but in that we couldn't find anybody to help us. So I sat on one of the couches. We were looking, and I called their customer service, and I told them that I was sitting in their couch looking for a salesperson. And my wife always used to say that JCPenney has my picture up on the wall. And the thing is when I show up on security camera, just call the police. Like that was it.
When was this? Was this like on the house phone? Is this old enough that it was like
No. When I was sitting there, this wasn't that long ago. It was probably before I relapsed, and so I've done some work since then. But my point is, that was me being that jerk, right? Walking in there.
I would have done that.
Yeah. And thinking like, that these people owe me something. And yeah. And it's, it's just the way I was. And I thought nothing of it. My wife was appalled. Right? My wife was appalled.
She says like she's quiet and says 3 words, and they're the 3 words that will cut through the silence.
Yeah.
When she chooses to talk, it's pretty important.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you will not forget it. She's one of those people who's listening to everything, watching everything.
Yeah.
And then when there's something to say, it's important and make you feel like an ass if you were an ass.
Well, no. My wife is way smarter than I am. So, right. So that when she's quiet too, like she is, she's just way smarter than I am. So I think I'm smart, but she's like way smarter than I am.
Yeah, there's a passage in the big book on page 122 and 123. When AA was quite young, a number of eminent psychologists and doctors made an exhaustive study of a good-sized group of so-called problem drinkers. The doctors weren't trying to find how different we were from one another. They sought to find whatever personality traits, if any, this group of alcoholics had in common. They finally came up with a conclusion that shocked the AA members of the time. These distinguished men had the nerve to say that most of the alcoholics under investigation were still childish, emotionally sensitive, and grandiose.
I'm not childish.
Oh,
no way, Mom, Mommy.
I think the biggest takeaway I have from this, and this is where I do bring it into my everyday life, because I end up dealing with customers. When I talk to a customer in my work, it's a customer who is pretty upset, pretty angry, and very nasty. And it was a recent time that I would never do it, but I was tempted of, I'm going to give this guy the business.
yeah.
And that would help nobody. But I share with my people who take customer phone calls a lot of these principles of lead with empathy. If they're really nasty, have the conversation in your mind that I really hope something horrible isn't happening with this person. And maybe that's why they're behaving this way. Maybe they've just lost a loved one. Maybe they're in desperate straits. That you can get yourself in mind of maybe there's some pain that this person's in, that they're behaving so irrationally. And that's why it is, not just because they're a crazy person. Because I've talked to customers on the phone where I'm 10 minutes in and I'm like, this is a crazy person. I'm not going to get anywhere with this person. Because there are certain people who I've gotten them a bunch of times and they're straight out crazy people. I can tell by the cadence. And when I think that, a lot of times they end up settling down and like, no, they're not crazy people. They just haven't been heard and haven't been valued. And if you kind of give a little bit, sometimes you end up having this nice conversation of like, how did this happen? I'm having this nice conversation. So I talk about this with my people of what can you control? What can you do in that situation? Have you thought about being more empathetic? Have you thought about humbling yourself? If they're angry about something and it seems like we might not have done the right thing, turn around and say, boy, that sounds like a terrible experience. It's something that I wouldn't want to have gone through. And that is something that really can knock out a customer, knock out anybody, because they're somebody spoiling for a fight. And you have somebody who's going to roll over and kind of agree that you have an issue. That's one way to de-escalate. I use all of this AA wisdom without saying AA wisdom to coach the people I work with. And it helps you.
Good.
It works with me because I have a lot of employees who annoy the shit out of me. And that sometimes has really clouded my judgment. And sometimes these people who annoy me, again, I put in the position of they work at home, they're not around people a lot, and maybe they had a leader who wasn't great to them. So maybe I can help with their experience. And if not, it's my lesson of patience.
Right.
Because that's what I can control. So this comes in with everything. Hey, if you like the show and it's important for you to put this into the new guy's ear, because that's why we're here. We're here because of COVID. It's tough to get to meetings for some people. Some people are scared, and maybe this is the only recovery thing that people are hearing. If you like this, there is no cost for it. It's free. You help the show by giving it to somebody else. If you'd like to help us with some of our bills, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/soberfriendspod. Buy us a coffee. We have some bills that we have to pay. We're happy to shoulder the burden, but if you want to help us out, we would love to have the help. I've got no reviews this week. So we had 3 last week, and I got none this week. So I'll give you a shout out if you do a review on Apple Podcasts. If you go to Spotify, you can do a rating. What else? What else is worth finishing up, boys?
We had some pretty good reviews last week.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, international reviews.
Yeah, let me see where we were in because we were big in I think it was Guatemala last week. Panama. It was Panama. We
It
were
was
really
Panama.
big in.
Yeah.
Like we're like huge. Like right there is like this group of people right outside the canal. Like we're big. It's like Rogan, Mark Maron, us.
Right.
I can't find it. I can't see it. We show up in Ireland a lot too.
Hey, a lot of good Irish drunks out there.
If you're listening overseas, contact me, Matt at soberfriendspod.com, because I just assume when I see that somebody's using a VPN. That's where my mind works. But if you're actually overseas somewhere, let me know. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, give us a shout.
Oh, yeah, that's
Absolutely.
That's cool stuff.
All right. Well, I stayed sober today.
Me too.
Me
You
too.
guys did. So I guess we'll do this again next week. If you like the show, share it with somebody. And until then, we'll see you later. Bye, everyone. You made it this far into the podcast. That tells me you're a pretty big fan. If you like what we do and you find value in the podcast, consider a donation at buymeacoffee.com/soberfriendspod. Your donation keeps us on the air to help out the new guy and helps us defray some of our costs. If you find value in our podcast, please consider a donation at buymeacoffee.com/soberfriendspod.